In mythology, the world is created in such a way to allow miracles and wonders and great magical deeds of the hero. What about your world? The creation of the world and the higher reality. When we think about the hero's journey, we often think of it as a process that spans over the life of the hero, a certain part of his life, from a beginning to an end. Now, the hero's journey as such doesn't necessarily start with the birth of the hero. Because, at birth, he's just a child, he can't really do something, even though in some myths, as we will see in the next video, the hero already has done some great deeds. But the actual journey into the world of the hero starts after that. This is why we start the journey with the number 1 and give the birth and childhood of the hero, or any prophecies that happened before the actual birth of the hero. We all give that the number 0. Because it's all about the starting point of the hero. But there are things that happened before that. Before the hero's journey can even start, before the hero can even be thought of, before any higher power, gods or other mythological beings can even decide that this hero is going to be born or create him or do whatever they do in this particular mythology, there needs to be a space, a world in which all this can happen. And this is the stage that comes before we even talk about the hero's journey. And since we start the description of the hero's journey with the number 0, the creation of the world has to be before 0. Now, the creation of the world is actually the creation of a vast universe, and we very often think of the universe as being unlimited, infinite. And there is an infinite number of possibilities that could be created within this universe. So it's only appropriate, because it's such a vast thing, to give it the number infinite. But because it's before 0, and infinite is obviously much larger than 0, we actually give it minus infinite as a number. Because minus infinite is before 0, and it includes all the vast possibilities that could have happened or did happen before the station 0. So the most famous mythological creation story that you have probably come across is the story presented in the Bible in the book of Genesis. And here the story of creation starts with, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So I said the biblical creation myth is one of the most well-known one. Now, some people don't think of it as a myth. Now, let me say this about it. In this video series, I will not make any assumptions about metaphysics, not pro or not against religion. The point that I'm referring to it as a myth refers to the metaphorical content of the creation story that we find in the Bible. Whether you believe it for real or not is not a content of this video. Now, I'll do another video about what I call metaphysical neutrality, which I think is the true perspective that a scientific philosopher should take, and why that is and what it is all about, I'll be explaining in full detail in another video. So, for the content of this video, I'll just make no assumptions, and whatever you believe or not believe, whatever your scientific convictions are or not, is irrelevant in terms of the metaphorical interpretation of any creation story or any creation account. It's important that you understand that a metaphor can be taken from anything that's real or that's unreal. I could use the Big Bang Theory as a metaphor to describe something. I can just as well use the biblical creation account as a metaphor for something. That is not a statement about the reality or non-reality of this particular theory. It's just saying it's a useful metaphor, and that's what this video is about, the useful metaphors we find in mythology. Metaphors work in the same way, like, for example, from a dream I can analyze the dream and get important, valuable information, that doesn't necessarily mean the dream is true. In the same way, I can get valuable information by analyzing a situation of everyday's life, and that is true. So both could happen. So we have this creation of heaven and earth. This creates the space in which we exist. And we find that the creation story has typically three major phases. First of all, this space is created. This space in which creation can take place. It's this space between heaven and earth. And in a lot of mythologies, we'll find that the separation of heaven and earth, or the separation of the dry land and the waters, is a very important feature. So, for example, in the Babylonian creation myth, in the beginning there is Tiamat, the dragon entity of chaos. And Marduk kills Tiamat and splits her in half. So one half of her body becomes the heaven, the other half becomes the earth. In the Egyptian mythology, the polarities are reversed. Here we have the mother being the sky goddess Nut, and the father being the earth god Geb or Zeb. So the first thing in mythology is typically the creation of the space in which we exist. Out of seemingly nothingness, the world egg comes into existence. The next thing that needs to happen is that this space needs to be filled with something that sustains life, with an order, with a structure, with seasons, with plants. And finally, we need to transition from these cosmic events to human events. So that's usually the point where humanity is being created, and when it starts to have something to do with us. And in some myths, at this point, already the destiny of the human beings is being established by giving them a certain blessing of what they're supposed to do, or even by the whole way the human being was created creates a situation where there's some unfulfilled task, such as in the story of Prometheus, where Prometheus has kind of sacrificed himself for human beings, and now it is up to us human beings to help Prometheus to be freed from his lot, which eventually Hercules will do. The pictogram we use to symbolize and represent this stage is the representation of the philosophical four elements, that is earth, water, air and fire, and in the center there's the ether as being seen the quintessence, the fifth element, which is, for example, in the Aristotelian view of the world, the original unchanging higher substance from where the stars have their origin. And because the four elements are a common theme in a lot of mythologies and in a lot of philosophies, we use this to represent the idea of a creation and a cosmic order. Now, the hero's journey is very often considered as a linear progress from start to end. That's what we discussed earlier. But Joseph Campbell thought of it more as being a circle, and this is why he called it the cosmogonic cycle. But in fact, it's not even that. Many things in nature appear to us to be circles when in fact they are not. Think about the seasons, We start at spring and we come to summer and it's autumn and it's winter and then a new spring. But it's a new spring. It's not the same spring. It's not the same year. It's a different year. So it's actually more like a spiral. Every time we go around, we come to a new level or to a new layer or to a new year. And in fact, more so, even the spiral itself consists of mini spirals. For example, just like we have the seasons of the year, we also have the miniature spiral of day and night. And after a night there's a new day, and after a day there's a new night. So that's like a miniature spiral. Then we have the months, etc. So we have spirals within spirals. So the way I think of this is a little bit like this cable. This cable, you know, is like a connection from one point to another point. And of course I can form a circle from this cable. But if you look, and I can actually form a spiral or many spirals from this cable. And in fact, many things in life are made up like that. They are spirals within spirals or shapes within shapes. If you look into the fascinating topic of fractals, you'll learn a lot about the way nature actually is constructed. So from this perspective, it makes most sense to look at the creation process and in fact the entire hero's journey as not so much a circle but a complex structure, which however is simple because we can break it down into smaller and bigger units. And this is why we can apply the whole idea of the mythology of the hero's journey and even the early stages such as the creation of the world to the entire universe, to our existence, to our life, but also to small units or parts in our life, like a project. And that's what we're going to do right now. So applied to a project in our life, the creation of the world corresponds to the creation or opening of a generative space or field in which success is possible. You know, whatever your project is, whatever you're doing in life, it can only succeed if there is a space in which it can succeed. And if that space doesn't already exist, you have to create it. That's the first stage. Think of some innovative project you might be doing in the company you work with. If the atmosphere in this company will not support your innovation, within that company you will not be able to do the innovation. Maybe you'll have to leave the company, or maybe you have to convince people with the power to do so to create that space where you can explore new ideas. Now, the same is true for your relationship, or for your family, or for your private life. For example, in your private life, if you want to experience an amazing love life, you first need to create the space with another person where this amazing love life can take place. Now, space doesn't necessarily mean to be a room. It can be a field, it can be a social atmosphere, it can be an environment, both physical or non-physical. But whatever you want to do, you first have to have the starting position, the starting environment, the starting space or field in which whatever you want to do is even possible. So just as the mythological creator establishes some rules, some seasons in this world, you need to establish some rules, some ground rules to make sure your generative space remains generative. And finally, you need to enter the space and invite others who are supposed to be there. So with this in mind, I'd like to invite you to our online platform where we create a generative space to meet like-minded people, to exchange with people who have an understanding for mythology, for personal development, for supporting each other to create a better world. So meet us online and become part of the community. Thank you for watching, and if you did like the video, give us your like and subscribe if you haven't already done so to stay updated. We're planning on publishing a new video once a week every Friday. So stay updated. Thank you for watching.